on February 23rd, start our meeting, call to order at 7:03. Everybody, I assume, got copies of everything, all the budgets. Truthfully, I only got to look over them a little bit. It appeared I know the capital improvement committee, that part of it, they talked about a ladder truck and the replacement of a communication console. That appeared to be stuff that we had talked about in the past anyways. And if the finance director wants to bring us up to speed on everything, what needs to be addressed, any changes or anything we should be looking at?
So I'll start with the capital. So the capital improvements did vote. They voted for $1,106,659 as identified on the spreadsheet. The only item I will address really is the ladder truck. Capital improvements supported $850,000. Just to let you know, the Board of Selectmen supported $750,000 for that item. They felt, they met with the fire department, they met with the chief, and they met with, see, you don't have it all.
I know it, I just realized, holy cow, how did I miss that?
They,
Is that the option one choice?
so that's the one I gave you separately. I don't know how they presented their options. I think it was
Okay.
actually option 3 under their original,
Capital was option 3.
yes, so it was adopted by a vote on 113, so that's what it's identified at the top. And I did highlight 2 items on there, the 850 and the 160. If this does pass town meeting, those 2 items would be borrowed. So where I have to borrow the fire truck money, I would roll in the communication console as well. So both of those items would be a borrowing instead of paying cash with the next budget. So I guess this group has to decide, or would have to come to a decision on what you are supporting, whether it's the recommendation of capital improvements. The selectmen would have to stand up, in my opinion, at town meeting because it's the capital article that's being presented in the warrant. So they would actually have to seek an amendment to go to the 750, unless they want to ask capital to meet again and revote that. But they did meet with the fire chief, members of the fire department, and they came to a consensus of $750,000.
You know what the rate on that borrowing would be?
I don't at this point because I ran the number so long ago, so I don't know what the new rate would be.
And what was the consensus why they came up with 750 instead of the 850 or some other number?
Well, to be honest, they started at 300,000, so I think there was some confusion on what was needed for a fire truck, whether new, used, demo would be needed, and what type of equipment would go into that. They had a very healthy discussion. Some members of the selectmen thought 850 was still too much, that they could get a fire truck for a less amount. The fire chief has said in the fall, he had the opportunity to purchase a demo truck for $579,000. That if he had that kind of money at the time, he would have jumped on it. So that being said, they thought 750 is a good number. He doesn't have to spend 750. If he spends 550, that's great. We can rescind the rest of it. But they felt 850 was too much flexibility to give them. So they all settled on 750. The fire chief said that was a workable number. He felt that they could stay within that number. Ideally, they would look at, they went back and forth between a straight ladder and sort of a bucket ladder truck. The firefighters would like a bucket so that they're not climbing a ladder, that the device is lifting them. Those tend to run more expensive, so if they looked at something like that, 750 may be what they spent on a bucket type truck. So just so you know that that's what and the Board of Selectmen did take that vote, so they have voted to support 750 in that item. Any questions that you have on the capital?
So how much outlay would it be this year for capital, given that it's obviously not the 1 million?
It would be
Is that on here somewhere?
$96,659.
Alright, and then what, do you know what like the annual payment would be for future years approximately on those 2 pieces?
I haven't run it yet because I really didn't know what numbers to run. If we do go ahead, if this is approved, we actually don't pay on either one of those borrowings until 2017. So it wouldn't impact the 2016 budget at all. Because the first payment of principal isn't until the following year.
Okay. Alright. I'd still wanna know just to see how that impacts all the rest of the.
Yeah, I can send you, I ran all the projections back when this group met with selectmen, I don't know if you guys were all there. When we had that joint meeting, I had presented some debt schedules on what, the borrowing would be.
Yeah.
But I can send that to you. The next spreadsheet, is our local receipts. So this is obviously our receipts and going into, funding our budget. So you'll see what was the actual spent or received in fiscal 14, estimated for 15, and what I'm estimating for 16 right now. There are some numbers highlighted because they are still work in progress. We're still waiting on some final numbers on health insurance. I've identified level funding state aid. I'm working with the assessor's office on their new growth and their overlay that they're gonna release. So there still are a few unknowns that I will be revising and getting back to you. Then I've identified the revenue that we've taken in so far this fiscal year. Really the only one that's light is the excise, but we haven't, it actually went out today, the 3 commitments for $712,000. So that first commitment usually brings in quite a bit of money, so we should not have any problems reaching our $725,000 estimate for 15. You'll also see I broke out the departmental revenue. I actually had a tough time trying to tie out to what the 15 estimates were. I really didn't know what went into those. So I broke them out into departments so that I could actually track them and see where we stood with those. Obviously in the past few years, which is great that the revenues have been very conservatively estimated, but I think in some instances, and actually the DOR has a problem if you're too conservative with estimates. They actually want to know why you're estimating so low if you're taking in receipts so much higher. So we did increase several of the estimates just to be more in line with what we are currently taking in. Still conservative enough that we would have excess money if we did reach all of the actual revenue that we've been seeing. So I've identified the receipts, then we go into the property tax and the debt exclusion for this year, showing $12,794,119. As I've said, we are right now projecting level state aid. I don't know if that's the case. The governor has publicly declared he will not hit state aid or make any cuts to it. Not sure what will happen once he gets before the rest of the legislature, but he is publicly saying he's not planning to cut state aid. We're hopeful of that. Not really a guarantee, but we're hopeful. So I've just level funded those figures. And then, as I said, the other financing sources, the enterprise indirects, $35,000. That's what we currently get from the light department for their pilot. Part of that is for rent, if you will, on the facility that they occupy. The town owns the land, they own the building, so they've come to an agreement that they pay $35,000 as part of that. I don't know if that will change with the fact that they're moving their building. So I've left that as a unknown right now. I will reach out to Mike Cloutier of the Light Department and just figure out where they stand. I have had preliminary conversations with him, and the light commissioners understand that they're moving into a currently taxable property that will become tax exempt when they occupy it. They are conscious of that, they're all taxpayers, so they have said, they haven't voted, but they have said they understand that and would like to try and make the town whole with those taxes. So I'm assuming that would be in part of a pilot. So we're hoping to not lose any revenue with the fact that they're going into a taxable property and becoming tax exempt. So that number may change.
Have you seen their financial statements for this year
I have not,
or last year?
I have not.
So they were, historically, they've had a huge surplus every year. I was just curious as to whether that still is being kept the same way, or?
I'm sure, although they did pay cash for the building, so they used much of their reserves to pay for the
Which
purchase of the
building did they
building.
buy?
970 Salem, 960, the last building down where, there's an auto body in there and a glass place.
Oh,
Right,
we're,
Jessica?
no,
Salem Street, the very last building on the left. It's where, Fadi, if you know Fadi, it's where his business is.
Oh, we're going under her.
Yes. 960 Salem maybe?
Which one is it?
On
bought that whole building?
They bought the whole building.
Right on the Georgetown line on 97.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
We're, yeah,
Not Salem, I'm
Flathead,
sorry,
and then, Tubbs around.
Oh, that's actually Salem.
Is it Sam? Okay.
That's just confusing.
That whole building from,
They bought the entire building. They will have tenants. It's
So on the right going to Georgetown?
on the left going to Georgetown.
Oh, where Tubbs is in?
yeah, yeah.
And the
On top of the
electrician,
hill.
Yeah.
Daniels?
Yes, Steve Daniels is in there as well. Yeah. So
So-
they bought that building. They are in the process of figuring out what they're going to do and how they're gonna design their layout. They've met with the tenants. They are not evicting anyone. They will keep the tenants. If in fact, you know, at any time the tenants move out, they may decide to occupy that space. But right now, the tenants that are there are staying there. They're not being evicted. There was some rumors about that. That's not happening. So they will have tenants.
And they will have income from it.
They will have income from it. Yes,
And their taxes are.
they are tax exempt. However, the portion of the building that is rented is not considered tax exempt. So if they're making money off of it, it's not tax exempt. So they would be taxable to some part of that building.
So there's enough open space in there for them to occupy?
There is. There is.
What are they gonna be doing, any idea with the building they currently occupy?
Yes, so my discussions with them have been, again, there's no votes being taken yet. The thought is they will just turn the building over to the town and let the board of selectmen decide what to do with that building.
Isn't that where the water department wants to be?
There's several people that wanna be there, but yes.
How much did they pay for the building? You know,
I don't know what they paid for it.
Should be public record?
You can look it up on the
Yes.
Salem Registry of Deeds.
Yep, sounds
Salem,
good.
Mass.
Yeah, I don't even know how long
Sounds
they've been in
awful.
that building.
just call them and ask them.
Yeah, we could just go find out. I don't know. And, you know, there has been talk that the water department would like to go down there. I've been approached by some residents that would like to see the council on aging move down there. The council on aging would be a huge expense, for the town. It's really not a facility that you can occupy and have programs and things without a lot of work. There are garages very deep. It's like an 8-foot.
It's not handicapped accessible.
It is, they do have a ramp into it, but, you'd need a lot of work in there. It would be more, easily to fit, it would be more easy to fit a utility company of sorts. So the water department would be an easier fit in there without a lot of work. And if it's the water department, it's their enterprise fund that would cover the maintenance, not the town's.
Now, how has that been set up? You said that the building was the electric lights, but we own the land.
Yes.
So what do we end up doing? Do we lease it to them?
Well, I don't know if we lease it, they technically own it, that's why they pay that pilot. That's part of what the payment they make is for the use of the land on the building they own.
So they would be the ones leasing the building.
No, they're gonna turn it over to us.
They're gonna turn it over.
That's what they've said, that they will turn it over to us, the town. They don't wanna take a vote, they don't wanna have stake in who goes in there, they don't wanna play the political games. They wanna turn it over and walk away and say, it's up to you to decide who goes in there next. That's what they've said so far. So I'm sure that's how they're going to proceed.
Where did the ideas about council on aging and the water department come from? I mean, from here, or did they solicit them, or?
No, it was discussed, the purchase of the building has been discussed at a few selectmen's meetings, and shortly thereafter, people started coming in with ideas of what they wanted to see down there.
So is there any cost to the town?
There would be. So if the council on aging went in there, it would be your
No,
general
but
fund
how about the
budget.
purchase of the building slash property?
The purchase of the new building?
So that whole thing was paid for by, okay, so we're talking about the town owning the land that the current building is on.
Correct, correct, and that building being turned over to the town to do what it wants.
Has the town decided that before they take that building back from the electric light, to make sure that there's no 21E issues with that building?
We haven't even gotten there. The light department's not looking for another, probably 6 to 8 months to be ready to vacate that.
Okay.
So, they were looking at 9, 10 months.
Just a lot of things that come with the electric light, PCVs and stuff like that, with
Yeah.
the cans on the poles and stuff, so I just wanna make sure that we don't accept some building has issues.
Yeah,
Yeah, but,
yeah.
Yep, I can,
cost to remove.
I'll talk
Yeah.
to,
Mhm.
the light department on that.
Yeah.
So before the selectmen accept the building, that should be addressed.
So we don't have a cost.
Kinda like doing, land testing when you by property.
Right.
And then would they be paying a similar amount for the $35,000 for the pilot for next year, even though they're in that new building, or is that gonna go down, or?
So that's something that still has to be decided. I don't know how the indirects, no one actually knows what that number makes up. When you're dealing with enterprise funds and indirects, you really should be looking at every single person that has anything to do with that enterprise fund. A portion of my salary, because I oversee, you know, the accounts payable and the payroll that pays them, a portion of the accountant's salary, a portion of the payroll clerk's salary. All of that should be coming out of their enterprise funds and funding the town budget, because we're doing work on an enterprise fund. I don't think any of that has happened. I think it was just an arbitrary number. So we could certainly look at more closely, you know, what it's costing the town to have an enterprise fund operate. And then, like I said, they're going to try, what their plan is to make the town whole, for the fact that we will be losing tax revenue. So that would be incorporated in any pilot agreement. So, I don't think it'll be 35,000, I'm assuming it'll be around there, but nothing's been officially decided by the lake commissioners as of yet.
And don't they pay us for the solar panel field too, or is that
They
something
do.
else?
We
Is
get
that
it.
in that same $35,000 number?
It is not, that is in, it's the rentals at the top, it says, I'm sorry, it's in the pilot number at the top. So, this year we received 14,000 and change, I believe, on the solar field. And that escalates every year, there's a percentage every year that agreement goes up. Where this 35,000 does not change from year to year.
You know, that 35,000 is fairly new, it used to be less than that.
Yeah, I know he went up, I think it was 30,000, maybe he went up 5,000.
I go back in my records, but I think it might even been less than that at one point. Yeah, anyway.
And then, so under the receipts, we have the, prior year free cash and reserve for abatements. The 150,000 that we've been putting aside as reserve for abatements really has been too high. So that's a number we potentially could lower to 135 and free up 15,000 for the budget elsewhere. Again, that's an unknown, we're not really sure we're gonna do that yet. I've been working with the assessor's office to figure out really what the right number is for that, and new growth. We wanna make sure we're still being conservative, but not so out of whack that, you know, we're taking from elsewhere when we really should be looking at adjusting those numbers. The cherry sheet charges, same thing with the state aid. We're not really sure what the offsets are this year. They granted Chapter 70 money, which is historically for school districts. Why we're getting Chapter 70 money, I don't know, but then they hit us with offsets to account for that. So they could do the same thing next year, or they could just do away with the Chapter 70 money altogether. So that number is a questionable number. So with all that, and the 96,000 from articles, which are the capital minus those two items, based on the budget that I recommended, again, there's still some unknowns, there's still an $87,000 deficit. So I did not know how this group wanted to proceed, if you wanted, I'm used to, in prior communities, giving the finance committee a balanced budget, and then you going through to decide if that's what you want or where you're gonna take things from. I did not know if that's what you wanted to do or if you wanted to make those decisions, so I left it with still having a deficit. In the budget itself, I gave you what every department recommended, and then I went through and made recommendations. There are still some unknowns, again, highlighted. There are contract negotiations going on. Health insurance hasn't come through. Some of the school numbers haven't come through. Some positions are still up for debate, so, again, I tried to
Is Nancy gone? I mean, I saw the numbers when I printed out this stuff earlier.
So Nancy, yes, retired in September,
Oh, okay.
technically. She has still been working. So with this plan, with this budget, she would be done by June 30th. And the plan as part of that was to remove from the administrative assistant, items that the administrative assistant maybe historically shouldn't have been handling, personnel matters, things like that, moving those under my authority, and then hiring a part-time administrative assistant to do office work, answer phones, take minutes, things like that, which is why the change in the salary.
Okay.
And that's actually the change in mine. We're still negotiating, so that's just a number that's been tossed around. It could be higher, it could be lower, I really don't know. They're looking at consolidating a bunch of things from the administrative assistant position to my position. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll have that, but the board will have my contract, done.
Is the selectmen determined that, the town of Groveland will work well with a part-time administrative assistant?
That's what we're still trying to figure out, that's what they believe. They believe that given, some reorganization, again, having my position assume some of those responsibilities, and then, providing some additional work to staff in the building, that we could get by with probably a 10, 12-hour-a-week person, being their administrative assistant.
Because we have
Email,
such a
phone calls.
unique, form of government here, where we don't have a town manager, we don't have a mayor.
Yep.
We just have a finance director, and then we've always had, Nancy Lewandowski handling all those other issues. That's why I'm just trying to figure how that's all gonna work, I mean, maybe it'd just be a change in the way the style, the way we do business, so.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is still left to be figured out. You know, we don't know what needs to be done, we don't know where we need to really reorganize. We've had a few meetings, we've looked at lists of things that Nancy's been handling to see, you know, where we could best, reallocate those. We have automated some things that she was doing, so, you know, we're looking to see what can be reorganized and if we need to have a full-time position. The board does not think they do, they think they just need a part-time person in that role.
There was a couple of things that stood out for me, and I don't wanna jump ahead of you. So am I gonna throw you off course if I start talking about something?
No, that's fine.
Well, for starters, we just talked about the $35,000 with that enterprise aspect, we just have we don't know where that's going for this year, right? Because they're in the process of buying that building, or they own that building right now?
They own the building.
They
They
own
bought
the
it,
building.
they bought it for $1,150,000, and there's no mortgage on it, so they did that.
Thank you. I asked earlier.
I'm sorry?
That's it.
That's why I had asked earlier, how much did they pay for it?
Oh, and I
didn't know you had
apologize.
the figure.
I thought you asked what they paid for the building they're currently in and what they were turning over.
No,
I
we're
apologize, I
trying
would've
to
told you
figure
that.
Trying
I
to
thought that's
figure out
what you're looking
it's something we don't really have that much control over, because they have their own little committee there on stuff.
Right.
I'm still trying to find out how our great deal was with the solar farm. I know it was gonna be extravagant rates because of the solar farm, and that was our promise, and we never were told really what the figure was gonna be when we did the solar farm. So it was just one of them things, that kinda tweaked me a little bit, but
It was kind of a trust us.
it
It's gonna
trust
be good
us,
for
it
us.
was a trust us, it's gonna be a good, but I'm still waiting to find out how much, I haven't seen the savings in the bill yet, but anyways, Whittier, vocational tech has always been our tech school.
Mhm.
Last year, if I remember right, Greg had come in and said, somehow or another we're tied into this new Northeast Vocational School. We always were part of the Aggie.
Mhm.
Our vocational school is Whittier Voc Tech. How are we hooked into $120,000 a year to this new Voc Tech?
So I don't know what transpired last year, but the Aggie has now transformed into this Northeast Agricultural Vocational, they've merged and become one school. So I'm assuming that, and that's when they merged, was last year, and sort of formed this new facility.
Yeah.
I don't know what, if anything, you paid to the Aggie before, if there was any students going there.
It was minimal.
It was
Yes.
minimal
It
in
was
the way,
like 3 or 4 or something.
the talk was that we were gonna have to chip in some money for busing. And whatever it was for the number of I don't know how many students we have going there now or don't have going there now, but I think it's something that, how can we have two vocational schools that we're paying for? It's now, it has changed, the game plan has changed, and I don't know if the Board of Selectmen had agreed to this, or the school committee agreed, I don't even know who would have the authority to agree to that, and whether we signed any document that we're cause Woody
Do
is
they
our
offer
voc tech
vastly
school.
different curriculums? That's how it
They
could
do.
possibly happen.
Well,
Agricultural.
right, so
Not anymore though,
No, they still do.
they do a
It's-
piece of that.
They still do that.
They do a piece of that, but I really think we can't be in two voc tech schools at the same
No,
time.
but if I remember, in Swampscott, the way it played out was, and I'm assuming with this amount, it's probably similar, that they were, and I believe that someone should have voted it or signed papers, that the communities that were part of that were going to be responsible for the debt service on constructing the new facility.
Cause there was new players that signed up for the game to get into, to have a vocational school. We already had a vocational school, so that's what my concern is that, this is gonna be, our Whittier Voc Tech numbers this time has gone up, and that's because we have students going there, and that's part of the deal, you know? But, if we're gonna be responsible for two schools that are both voc techs, we have to decide which voc tech is gonna be our voc tech school. Whether they have agricultural, they don't have agricultural, they, I don't know what happened, and I don't know, originally, if I remember, it was a smaller number last year. And it was for the buses.
I'm wondering what was spent on Aggie in 14.
14 is blank, yeah.
Well, cause this is it's a new budget for Northeast, so when I did the budget, I didn't have a number for what we spent in 14. The first time we appropriated to this school was in 15.
Did we appropriate anything to the Essex Aggie in 14?
I don't know, I'd have to go back to 14 and look.
Those
'Cause
would
I
be the
mean-
kind of numbers I'm looking for.
We did have a small, I think we had maybe a couple of students at one point that went to the Aggie, but the thing is that I just think that,
120 grand.
we've entered into a dangerous territory here. If we're gonna have two voc tech schools, who's our voc tech school? And this is gonna be something that's gonna blossom. And now, I mean, you have a look, the problem we have a lot of times is that we don't focus on the long term, we focus on the short term on a lot of stuff. And that this is something that I just see growing. This number here someone better find out what happened with this and address it, cause it started off being sold that we were gonna have to somehow or another, and people were scratching their heads saying, we gotta pay for buses. Well, because we were originally in the Aggie agreement, did we sign into the North Shore Voc agreement? And I don't have the answer, cause that isn't the hat I wear, you know, but this number here, I'm just worried that this is gonna be something that's gonna grow and we're gonna be tied into
Well, do you know
two voc tech schools.
when it was discussed last year? Did anything come up? Cause it
All
was
that got talked
appropriated
about
last
was
year.
we got a bill for buses,
Okay.
or some, if I remember right, and I'm just going off of memory, I might be totally wrong. We got some small, and we said, we don't really understand, and I wanna say it was a lot smaller number than that.
Well, this
It
is what
was-
town meeting voted, was 123.64 last year. So I don't know where that number came from. Again, the budgets that I have for the prior year, no one really did budget, so I don't know where that number came from.
It's just, it
But that's what
concerns me
we-
that it's something we got hooked into, that did we even sign on for it? And now, how many voc tech schools do we need? I understand one might have a specialty in something else, but we gotta decide, you know, maybe we can't afford to have two different directions to go. We have to find out where we're going, because it's, you know, this is something that's gonna grow, and it's gonna hurt us. I mean, you're looking down the road, they're gonna be after us for a new high school at some point. And, think that's predictable. I think you're having water pipes break, you're having all that stuff, and the talk is they're gonna keep on coming for a high school. Well, if, we've already got ourselves hooked into loans for property, and we gotta watch our bond rating. If we're not careful, we get ourselves into a third school at the high school level. This is something that has to be controlled now. They can't let that grow. And you have to make a decision somehow or another. I know we were in the ag agreement, but maybe it is something that the selectmen signed on because we were originally part of the ag, maybe not, I'm not sure. But if there's something you could look into on
Yeah,
that,
I can
because
look.
it concerns me,
Yeah,
it's,
my concern would be that whatever was done last year, obviously, if it was budgeted for. So if there was an agreement, it was probably put in place last year. I don't know
Right.
what that would be for, I don't know
I think
what-
it was a surprise bill
Okay.
that popped up.
Okay. So, I mean, I haven't received anything from them, any correspondence at all, so
Yeah.
I just
I don't even know
level
if we have
funded the
anybody in the
amount so
system.
that,
We
so
might,
that I
we
could
might
plan
not,
for something,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I can look into that, I can call and see what I can find on it.
I mean, I'm just looking at the big numbers here, going through this quick. Fire chief,
So the fire chief, you'll see the fire chief submitted his budget, looking to increase his hours to 30.
How many does he have now?
It's about 16. He submits a timesheet for about 20 to 22 hours a week, but he gets paid for, I think 16 hours a week. He's expressed, since he took the position, that he needs more hours. He's not been shy about expressing that.
Yeah.
The
Does he need more
board,
hours to do the job, or does he need more money? 'Cause, is it clear? I mean, what's he doing with those extra 14 hours?
so, I don't know, the board of selectmen are trying to get into negotiations with him to renegotiate his contract, which expired, last year, to try and figure out what he's doing, how many hours are needed. So he did request 30 hours, that's the 49,000 figure. For budgetary purposes, I dropped it down to 25, I don't know where the board is, I don't think the board is at 30 hours. I don't know if they're at 20, I don't know what number, so I just plugged in at 25
Is that
hours
in
as a
addition
working
to his
number.
call-out money when there's a fire, or?
No, he doesn't get paid for anything extra.
Okay.
So he is salaried at, right now he gets, I think it's like $235 a week.
Okay.
So,
So the
well,
que-
for 35, maybe I
what
transposed
happened was
that.
with this little historical thing that I get out of it, we started off the last fire chief, we said he was full-time.
Yes,
Then the next fire chief here, they went and they had a whole bunch of people apply for the job as a part-time job,
yes,
knowing that we were gonna be going into a part-time fire chief job. 18,928,
yes.
and then we got it up to 22. I find it kinda odd that it's a part-time job, myself personally, but everybody that put in for the job thought they were looking at an $18,928 job. And now, we're trying to get up to 30 hours, 30 hours would put them into the full-time category, so also that would get them up to,
19 hours puts him into full-time.
that would get them the medical insurance
Correct,
and all that.
correct.
But, this is what I don't even, to look at historically, what was our full-time fire chief getting before they decided to make this a part-time job? That's something I think we need to know.
I think that was, you have 13 right there, right? How much does it say in there? I think it was similar to the $18,000 number.
Yeah, I think that was
the
the-
previous,
No, I think that was the issue, was he was only getting paid 18,000 or something, but they called him full-time for benefit purposes.
right,
So,
so, I mean, that's a tremendous,
Does this reflect an increase in your benefits if the hours are increased?
No, cause so, to talk about the health insurance for a minute, the GIC has been actively meeting with insurance companies. The initial plans came back at an average increase of 9%. 3 years ago, the GIC came out with their plan that they were going to have 5 years of minimal increases. They were looking at a 1, a 0, and then 2 years of savings. We are now in the 0 year, and now the plans have come back with a 9% on average. And that means that the Harvard and Tufts, the two PPO plans, were in double digits, and the Unicare plans were in single digits, and it just happens to average. We're fortunate here that we have very few people in the Harvard and Tufts plans. The majority of our users are in the Unicare, so the insurance increase should be minimal for us. Other communities are having a really hard impact because a lot of their employees are Harvard and Tufts. So that being said, the GIC has come out with a couple of different options. They are meeting next week, March 3rd, I believe, to vote the rates. This will more than likely have deductible increases for the employees, co-payment increases for the employees, and have some type of rate increase. They're hoping to have it under 9%. They're actually their plan is to do away with the PPO plans and go to POS plans, which right now PPO, you can go anywhere in your circle. POS is a preferred service operator.
Point of service.
Yeah, point of service, so they would have to designate a primary care physician. So people that right now have flexibility to go anywhere in their network would have to have a primary care physician or switch to a different plan. Those are all on the table. The GIC has been having municipal meetings to inform people of these. They've met with the unions that make up their commissioners because it is a huge hit, something that people are not planning for. But that being said, I do think we've been overly estimating our health insurance budget. As you can see, last year we only spent $284,000. This year we're tracking similar savings. So I did think that we could probably maybe drop instead of 340, just go down to 335 and still be safe with any increase and any added benefits from any positions that might be added. But I'll have a better number next week when we know the final rates.
Yeah, the GIC plan, I've had many arguments about the GIC plan. The GIC plan is, for the community I work in, it was originally losing $80 million a year when we got in it. So now, surprise, you get a 9% increase and there's a lot of copay.
Right,
So-
well, and that's the problem, is the state, so this is the same insurance plan that all the state employees, state legislature, the governor, they're all in the same plan. So the state has to fund their own, obviously, portion of their health insurance. They've underfunded that alone, millions of dollars a year. And then when the municipalities joined, they decided, so municipalities were allowed to join in July 1st, 5 years ago I think it was now, 2010, and then the following February they had to put in mid-year deductibles to try and make up their shortfall that they themselves were underfunding. So then they came to the municipalities to pay more so that they could make up their budget shortfall. And that has been historically happening year after year. Governor Baker has proclaimed he does not like that approach, he does not support that approach. With his insurance background, his priority is to close the gap that exists and then try to fully fund the health insurance going forward so that municipalities don't bear the burden, the state doesn't have to come up with emergency money in the June 29th and figure out where they're gonna close that gap from. So he is committing to have better oversight of the health insurance budget. So hopefully, maybe this year will be somewhat of a transition, but going forward, there'll hopefully be more, their appropriation will be better in line with what they're spending.
Why is the treasurer collection clerk, her pay is going down, that's like 5%, is there a change in job duties there?
Yeah, so I actually changed her hours, she was a 5-day-a-week employee, she's gone down to 4 days a week.
Alright, so that's a drop of 8 hours a week?
Yeah, we sort of reallocated her hours, so it really came down to, she was at 20, I think she's at 26 hours now, she was at 20, I think it only changed like 2 hours a week, cause I extended her on Monday. She works Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But in doing that, it allowed me, sometimes in the office we don't have enough work. So this allowed for reallocating to where we need the hours and then saving some money in the budget.
And the postage under the finance department, that is what you talked about before that's representing all of town hall, not just your office?
That is correct.
Okay.
So a few things that have happened that I did allude to in one of my emails was the postage budget, some of the utilities, individual departments have been, taking a check for $49, going and buying a roll of stamps. What they put those stamps on, we assume it's work, I have no idea, there's no checks and balances. I have a postage machine in my office that we pay a rental fee on, that's only being used for tax bills and my office's mail. Why that happens, I don't know. So this is consolidating, taking the postage out of everyone else's budget, doing away with the fact that they're going and buying rolls of stamps. All the mail will come to my office at the end of every day. My office will stamp them with the meter that we pay for. So number one, the auditors actually had some problems with the postage being spent by stamps. So this helps on that, and it just helps consolidate. The utilities as well, under the municipal buildings. Under the utilities line, the phone services were being charged to each department, so we would get a monthly phone bill. It would be paid out of the utilities, municipal buildings, and then once every quarter, they would go through and journal entry and figure out what each department spent on phone services and charge those departments. To me, that's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of people calculating it and doing journal entries. Consolidate, it's all general fund money, put it on the utility line, and free up some of that time that's being spent calculating those. We still get a phone bill broken down by department, we can still see what's being spent. It just makes more sense to consolidate those and have them in one department. I did reorganize some as you're going through. Obviously, I broke up the majority of the blanket expense lines on larger departments. Anywhere that I could break it out to have additional lines to show people what's being spent on expenses, I've done that, which is why you'll see nothing in the appropriated 15, because those lines didn't exist as they are now. I've also moved some things around. Under technology, the computer hardware maintenance and license fell under the finance department before, but computer consultant was a separate line in a separate department. To me, that made no sense. I made a technology group with the technology. Same thing with the municipal buildings. We had some things that were in other departments. I've consolidated that. The insurance line, we were only covering the property and casualty. The health insurance and life insurance was listed under unclassified at the end. To me, those aren't unclassified. They should be listed under the insurance budget. So when you're going through, I have moved things from the past. But the appropriated 2014, appropriated 2015, the bottom line is exactly what was in the warrant and was voted at town meeting. So it may be reorganized, but it falls better to where accounting is tracking expenses, where people should see what we're voting in total of insurance. The police department, and I have to wrap it up quickly because I have an executive session. The police department consolidated. We originally had budgets for communications separate, animal control separate. They've consolidated all that under the police department. So instead of having communication expense, animal control expense, they now have one expense line that covers all police functions. The only thing that's separate is emergency management, because that is really falls under the deputy chief, so he has his own department as that. But they did a good job. They were using reserves to do animal control, and like we're trying to track what we're spending out of which budget, and it's all the same people. He's like, it just makes sense to have one pay line for those things.
Highway salaries,
Highway,
$100,000 increase, you know what happened there?
yep, so the highway, and the majority of the bigger departments, you do have narrative on all of them. The highway department, the road commissioner has asked for two additional people. So in his request includes they had only one position, a senior operator in their union contract. They have a foreman and a senior operator. We actually negotiated and added a junior operator in their union contract. So he is asking for one senior operator and one junior operator. What that would do is, currently the highway department covers all field maintenance. They cut all the grass, they maintain all those fields. He's doing that right now with the staff he has and part-time help. So as part of this, the part-time line, it was at 22,000, we've dropped that down. But that would help him, obviously on all fronts. We now do catch basins here, he used to outsource that, they've taken that on. There's things that, a lot of the outsourcing that was done on the highway has been brought in-house, and now they find themselves at capacity because now they just don't have enough staff to do everything that they're doing.
And
So-
what fields were you talking about?
All fields, they cut the grass at all fields.
Washington
Which
Park.
fields are those?
Not Washington Park. I don't think.
They do the Pines, they do Shanahan, I believe they do Washington Park, they do Elm Park.
Once a year?
No, he dedicates someone like 3 days a week to field maintenance and cutting grass.
Well, up until this past spring, I know at least, they hired out the lawn cutting.
Yes, we were hiring out. Yeah.
Where were they cutting it?
You'd have to talk to him, I don't know.
GBL cuts the grass at Washington, I know that for a fact,
Okay.
I run the lawnmower, and we brought down tractors.
So they do this complex.
They do this complex, the Pines, they do Shanahan, they do Elm Park.
So if those were contracted out previously, where
Is it
are
savings?
they in this budget?
They're not, because he said they brought those services in over the last few years.
Okay.
It's just he had, we did lose one of the employees who had certain licenses to do some of those tasks. He left, so now it was a way to just add more staffing to help do everything that they need to do. So I have to run, I have to go back to the board for an executive session. Do you wanna meet next?
I had one quick question. I noticed I was watching one of the taped meetings. Yeah, it wasn't the live meeting, it was a taped one, selectmen, and they were voting on deficit spending and snow and ice removal. Is that how it's done?
That's how it's been done here.
Well, up until this past year, it was done through the finance committee.
He gave me the same letter that he's presented to the Board of Selectmen the last 3 years for requesting deficit spending.
And usually, I was surprised we haven't been called in on any deficit spending on the snow and ice yet, because usually we vote to approve that, we sign it, and then it goes before the selectmen.
Okay.
So, that's the,
That's why I was just wondering.
Okay.
I figured for sure we were gonna get called in for that,
Yeah,
because
'cause-
obviously
What
we
is,
didn't have one of those
what are we
numbers.
into now for the deficit this year?
So tonight they just approved the second 70,000 additional,
So the additional is how much?
140 right now.
140?
As of tonight, 140 they've approved. So we spent 162,000 as of February 3rd. The budget's 165. So the
Right.
bills went in, he hasn't given me a new tally, but we went through the original 70,000 already. So now we've requested the second 70,000.
Will any of that come back through FEMA or MEMA or?
So right now, the only storm that's eligible is the initial blizzard. And I got an email today that Essex County is still $200,000 short in reimbursements before we meet the threshold for reimbursement. So they've asked all communities to go back and look at their expenditures and see if there's anything else that they could submit for reimbursement. Because the county needs to find another 200,000 before we're even considered for reimbursement. That's the only storm right now that we're eligible for, if anything. The governor has declared a state of emergency, had declared a state of emergency on several other instances, but at this point, there's no reimbursements available. So,
200,000
We don't
for a
know.
county should be a piece of cake.
it should be, but I believe the majority of the communities have already submitted their requests. So I don't know what other monies will be available, if any, but that's what they're looking for now.
Would any of that potentially fall into, would we not have enough in the 15 budget that would get pushed into this 16 budget to catch up on that?
Yes, and potentially any reimbursement we get may not come until fiscal 16.
How much are we looking at would maybe get pushed into 16, since that wasn't on the sheets? I saw a line item, but it said 0.
Right now I have no idea. I won't know until we figure out where we are with spending, what we need to do to cover that. We're looking at overlay money, we're looking at several other options before we figure out if we're gonna have a deficit going into 16 on snow and ice.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're already $140,000 short of the 15.
Well, it's not a guarantee 140, I mean, right now, we've spent the 70 now, he's asking for another 70, so it depends what kind of snow we get. We may spend it, we may not.
70 that were over budget.
It may, last year it was 274,000 that was spent on snow and ice, so you're 110,000 over. It could be any number. Hopefully it'll stop snowing.
Hopefully, I hope you're right.
But every community around us has already spent their budget twice over.
Well,
And
yeah,
that's-
because
and
they
that's
always
pretty
under
normal.
budget it, that's
Correct.
been traditional.
Correct.
We used to do that here, and then we started, wasn't too long ago, we had a $35,000 snow and ice removal budget.
Yeah.
And then we started pushing it up because, for this
Because
very
you can,
reason.
right, well, and you can deficit spend, that's the only line you can legally
Well, I
deficit
know,
spend.
but all that
so.
means is you're pushing it into the next fiscal year. So, I mean, it's, you know,
So,
when
Next
does it?
meeting.
No, sorry, go ahead, no, I'm just sorry.
She was just saying, next meeting, usually we start having groups come forward at some point. I just don't know. I would think we'd like to start setting up meetings with people that have,
I'm thinking like
increases to their
major
budget, any
increases,
major increases in the budget.
yeah.
so if you wanna
So that's what
talk,
we
and you
have
can
to-
let me know who you wanna meet with, and
Okay.
let me know the day, and I can.
Do you
set
wanna
that up.
plan on next Monday? Anyways, okay, next
Okay,
Monday,
so
and
you
then
wanna-
I'll talk to you and figure out who we
Who
should.
you wanna meet? I mean, I'm assuming police, fire, highway, are probably three that you definitely wanna see.
And on your,
BOS, we'll
I'm
wanna
sorry.
see eventually too. BOS, we usually talk to them at some point too,
Right,
sooner, and I know, Mike Dempsey wanted to come before us as the CPA fund committee, whatever I don't remember what it's even saying.
Yeah,
What
so-
it's stand for, so, he just likes to
Community
come.
Preservation Act, right?
Yes, so the Community Preservation Committee, the selectmen have asked for them to come before them, at the next meeting, which would be March 9th, so if you wanna have a joint meeting, it means to me it makes sense to present once instead of coming before this group and also coming before the
Yeah,
selectmen.
that works.
So if you wanna plan your Monday, May 9th, March 9th meeting, part of it to be a joint meeting with Community Preservation. They did put forward some significant projects, totaling close to $1 million
Yeah,
is
I
what
was
the
on
Community
that.
Preservation
I
is
was
supporting.
aware, so.
And they have the money to pay for that, or they just
They
gonna
do.
use it as a
They do.
deposit and get a
No,
loan
it's
again?
not.
is there that much open land to buy still?
I don't know, we'll find out, I
Yes,
guess.
so if you, so I can add that as a joint meeting for that part if you
For
like.
March
Not
9th,
all
For
those
March
roads
9th,
are
and I'll
protected
send you
by now.
that, to confirm,
okay.
when I talk to Mike and see if he's
And
available.
we'll just kick it around here and figure out exactly, who we should try to get on the agenda
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, let me know, and then they also, like I said, a lot of departments were good at putting together a narrative. Some departments refused. I'll tell you, the Board of Health refused to do a budget altogether. I actually cut them, I recommended cutting their expense line, cause they're not
There you
using
go.
it, and they sent me an email that said level funds, so they wouldn't do a mission statement, they wouldn't do goals, they gave me nothing, so. But the police put a very thorough
That
packet
was
together.
included in your email?
Yes, emergency management to the thorough one. I mean, a lot of departments did take the time to put together.
In your recommended finance director line on here, does that reflect, like, I just opened this up, but this was, under your department actually. Salaries for Pat and Valerie with a 2% increase. Is that reflected in your recommendations here as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
So my recommendation, I tried to, unless I specifically knew of places where we should be cutting based on prior year spending, I tried to just put in recommended as what departments are requesting, cause I figured that's what I would leave up to you guys. If you want me to make more strict recommendations, I certainly can. One department requested a significant salary increase, which I did not recommend going forward. So, but I tried to give people, if they said that they needed more staff, I did speak to the police department, I did talk to the highway to figure out where they would use that staff. I thought it would be something that if we could fund, perhaps we should. So that's why my recommendations are there. But it does include the 2%, that's your question.
And any of the revenue sources are still open enough so that we could have, the potential for more of a shortfall?
Yes, I don't think we're gonna have any issues. The overlay accounts, we actually have significant money left in overlay, so, the assessor and I are going to go through and look at our, receivables and see what we actually need legally to have in those overlay accounts, and then they can release the majority of the money that's in there. So I don't think if, based on my recommendation with the 87,000, without those other numbers even being adjusted, I think we can easily just close that right up.
Okay, and is there any major, I mean, we're already looking at a pretty good bump in Pentucket,
Yes.
so I mean,
So Pentucket, he told me that that number is good within about 35,000. He said it could go either way, 35,000, but that's pretty much his good number. He gave me two numbers. He said that you normally break it up into three. I have no idea. I went back through the numbers that were given in the past, how he had a supplemental assessment, and I just couldn't tie out to it. So I changed it and just put the two numbers that Pentucket gives us, the base amount and the capital. I figured instead of trying to finagle a third number of supplemental,
there used to be, several years ago, when we thought, the three towns thought they were working under a regional agreement that had been authorized and approved by the state. Until the union sued us, we didn't realize that there was never a contract, that regional agreement was null and void because it had never been approved by the state. For years and years, it was done, so at that point, it was 3 out of 3 on the supplemental budget.
okay.
And that was the increase from the previous year's assessment. And I know there might have been a factor of the 2.5 in there as well, but it was anything above that was considered supplemental. That had to be approved by 3 out of 3 towns.
Okay.
And, well, once the lawsuit came through and the judge said, sorry, guys, you know, your appeal is denied, there's no contract.
Yes.
Anyway,
So I actually, and I'll give it to you.
so
They-
that's
yeah.
probably why there were 3 figures, now there's really 2 figures, and
Yeah, the budget shows 2, he gave me 2 numbers, he said I could back into the supplemental by just subtracting it. To me, that doesn't make sense. If there's 2 numbers in their budget, there should be 2 numbers in our budget, so I just kept it with the 2 numbers. I do have a copy of the school budget to give you guys if you wanted, it's,
so
or I
what's
can
roughly
scan it
that,
and send
what
it.
is that, what is that increase? It's, 550,000 or so in the base
Mhm.
increase?
I don't wanna hold you up, I know you're supposed to
Yeah, I know
be
you do.
someplace else.
I know, cause they're
We'll
probably,
keep going on.
they're gonna get themselves into trouble in there.
Alright,
So I'll see you next Monday, but let me know who you wanna meet with
Okay.
specifically, and if there's any questions that come up, I can. email
okay,
you. And I'll scan the school budget so that, cause they only gave me 1 book for all of you, so I'll scan it and send it to you all.
okay,
Thank
Thank you.
thank you very much.
The cemetery department is an issue all in itself.
Okay,
Um,
never mind
we can
that,
talk about that on Monday.
good enough.
In a brief nutshell, town meeting has been appropriating $4,500 for them each year. They spend $16,000. They've been taking their revenue and just spending it. So they violated appropriation law. It hasn't gone through town meeting. They've just been
Who is this with?
cemetery.
Cemetery.
So they've been
Who are
handling
the
almost.
commissioners now?
There's currently 2. We need to refill 1 with the passing of Dick
Okay.
Shaka. So it's Bob Guptill and Vern Cotton. When I met with them, they said it's been happening for years and years and years. I did speak to Greg on it. He said he knew, but it was just easier to let them do what they wanted. So in my recommended budget, it is to actually fund the cemetery at what they say they're spending. I did make some minor cuts, I believe. But we should be appropriating, if they're spending 15,000, we should be appropriating 15,000,
So all those bills are put through your office? Okay, so you know what they're spending it on?
yes. But they had it's not a slush fund, they had they called a donation account, that all of their money from foundations and things went into this donation account and then they just spent it, how they saw fit. So.
So
that was-
perpetual care ideas kind of done?
Perpetual care separate, so perpetual care they were handling as perpetual care, and the sale of lots, they handled the sale of lots, sort of any other revenue, which it's like foundations and markers, that they were taking in quite a bit of money. So the general fund wasn't getting that money, which it rightfully should, they were just taking it and spending it. So the adjustment so I asked them to document what they're spending, what their expenses really look like. In their presentation, they showed, what their cemetery, what they called income account is spending from, and what the town meeting appropriates, and it's dramatically different. that's why the jump in their budget is the way it is.
We get a toilet in the garage.
Yes, okay,
That was a big deal up there.
thanks, guys.
Okay, I'll give you a copy
Well,
of this.
last year,
And a
hot
copy
tub.
of this one.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I wish I had known this because, maybe, should've known this before I went.
It's a little bit more than the 2.5 they promised us, isn't it?
What's that?
School.
School went up 4.1%.
But that has partly to do with the distribution of how we're each charged, each town is charged. It's just not a flat amount, so
Last
one
year
town
was
gets hit
28.
more this year, and someone else, the other town gets hit more
It's-
next year.
It changes all the time, right? I don't even know the whole formula, but I just know it changes.
But I do know this, that if the population, student population continues to drop, the amount it's dropped in the last few years, well, we've eliminated choice,
Right.
so that dropped a number of, well, revenue source, but also just the number of students in the district. They're gonna close Sweetser, that's how few students are going there. Which is, they've been talking about doing it. There's not enough students, not enough to move it in, and
There's a lot of stuff in this, budget. That was that, if you notice, we've done this before, and I don't know if it's for the good or for the bad, this combination of jobs happening. You're gonna look at your fire, just looking at it quick, your fire department budget, he eliminated the clerk again, right?
Yep.
So he can, so that money can go someplace else.
it's not.
We're eliminating a administrative assistant that was full-time in here, so the money can go somewhere else. It isn't that it's being eliminated, you know what I mean?
Being redirected.
It's being redirected and this is, we've seen this happen before with other things and I don't know, someone's gotta make a case for it, I think, and just tell me why, or is there no need for that? I just think that there's just some aspects to it. Like I said, I found it funny when the fire department did go with a part-time fire chief, I thought it was kinda odd. But the tough part of that is, everybody that applied for the job is looking at a $22,000 job, or an 18.9 job. What did she say, what were the hours, were they 19? He wasn't getting medical benefits.
14 to 16 hours.
They made it so there was no medical benefits, and now
Right.
we
Yeah.
changed the job, and then,
Now
No.
we're gonna change it again.
It's a proposal to change the job,
right,
that's all it is.
right.
But I think if we go that
I
direction.
go to my boss and I want $1 million tomorrow, you know what I mean, it's just, I'm requesting that, doesn't mean I'm
Right.
gonna get it.
But you're on an annuity plan, you get a dollar a year for 1,000,000 years.
Here's my only issue with that, and if you think about it, he doesn't have enough hours to do the job now, so he wants to increase the number of hours. Okay, I get it. But now you're going to eliminate your clerk
Right.
in order to fund yourself. Well, half of the hours you just got now, you've got to use up on something that wasn't
To be declared.
designed
For you.
in the first place, right?
But didn't he eliminate his clerk last year?
He tried.
He tried.
That
But
was
he
part of this was part of the process before.
Right, but did he actually eliminate the clerk? So the clerk is still there.
Clerk was
Actual
still there.
spend, you still
If I
there.
remember right, at one point, the clerk was the
The
retired
former
fire
former
chief.
chief.
Yeah.
Yes.
But after
regard-
town meeting last year, I would have been surprised if he was still the clerk.
Well,
You know, it was
he's
kind
been
of a
paid
crazy-
$9,000 this year, so if you look at the line item.
It's
But
kind of a-
was he kept on as full-time? See, that's the part that I don't like about this, you know, we see salary, okay, so they make X amount a week or X amount an hour,
Mm,
but what's the associated benefits cost to the town?
Right.
Right.
And that's all built into the one item health insurance or,
Right,
You know,
that's your
whatever.
19, that's when you hit that 19-hour mark. When you hit
Right.
19,
or you're declared full-time when you're only working 16 hours, which is what they did with the former chief. That, so he could get benefits.
Was he declared as working 16 hours with last shift, is that what it was, or was it?
Yeah, that's what she
That's
just
what you
said.
said.
Yeah, he got the health benefits.
I know he got that.
Even
I
though
always
he was
knew
considered
a
part-time.
full- Oh, I thought he was considered a full-time chief, and then there was always.
They called him a full-time chief so they could give him the benefits,
Right,
and at the same time keep the salary lower.
it's just kind of a weird thing, I mean, I know we have a volunteer fire department and stuff, but to have a part-time chief, I always thought, but I'm not the one that did the contract, someone else did the contract.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have no influence on that particular line item anyway, as we saw last year.
Right.
Yeah.
We have no
And
influence on
she
any
was
line
saying,
item.
she was just saying that he's been submitting time cards for 20 to 22 hours, so
Mhm.
I do have to say, if it's going to 20 hours, then why are we budgeting up to 30 hours, or however many hours it was?
It's just that, when you see, like I said before, there's a lot of money that goes out the back door here, it doesn't, and then we go and we hold all the city and town employees at 2%.
Mm-hmm,
Then there's certain people that think they should get more than 2%.
mm-hmm.
Everybody else is getting 2%, but then we have some dramatic increases. And how do you sell that to everybody? I mean, we have a lot of stuff that, I hate to keep on beating a dead horse here, but we keep on talking about, I keep on going back to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And they really gotta look at the whole picture of what's going on. We end up holding everybody to 2%, but then we getting into these things of the salaries, which we don't really have. We don't have anybody that makes recommendations or doesn't make recommendations, like a personnel board, we've talked about that in the past, right? Go back to when Dave Kowalski was here, he used to say, we don't have a personnel board, and I don't really feel comfortable with recommending salaries or not recommending salaries. I know we meet these people, and a lot of them seem to be, pretty good workers and everything else. I don't know anything about their work ethic, I don't know anything about anything. All I know is that's who they are, And then we end up making decisions on what kind of pay raises we're gonna get. It's just kind of an odd thing.
Well, see, that's the whole thing, I don't consider it a decision, we make recommendations and really it's out of our hands, like
Well, what's out of our
Ian
hands?
said, they go before the board and they negotiate their own deal,
Right.
regardless of what we,
When we had that last joint meeting about the fire department equipment with the capital improvement.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, maybe I was just reading between the lines, but when Joe DeMore said, well, I think we can come to a consensus on this.
Huh.
That's exactly what he got done. I mean, I'm no expert on equipment, I have no idea. I mean, we really need a ladder truck. Well, I guess we need a ladder truck, but what are the options if we don't get a new ladder truck right now? Or,
Right. Well, that's where you get into the whole,
The reality
when the
though
fire
is-
chief wears the fire chief hat, I expect him to be my expert on fires.
yeah, me too.
And so when I talk to the fire chief and the fire chief says to me, we can't fight a fire without a ladder truck. A ladder truck is needed to fight a fire. So I don't wanna be the guy, as soon as I say we don't need a ladder truck, that'll be when we need to rescue someone out of a third-story window, and we didn't have a ladder truck. And I don't wanna be that guy. I expect the fire chief to be able to tell me his expertise on fighting fires, it's not my expertise. So we could recommend on a mutual aid thing, we could say, okay, we could wait for Georgetown, there's a time factor involved in waiting for Georgetown to come with the ladder truck. The ladder truck we have is a 1982, it's unsafe, it's something that ended up being on the capital improvement budget that was planned for. Well, we're going in the right direction, it sounds like we're planning for it, we expect, it's an expense we know that's coming down the road. When we started talking about replacing all the trucks in the fire department all at once, that's when I said, well, wait a minute, this is, because one truck's too big. Well, someone bought the big truck, you're stuck with the big truck. But the ladder truck, it's that old, we put some bandages on it and we kept it alive a little bit longer.
and kept pushing it
And
out.
we kept pushing as
Pushing
far
it
as
out.
we could. Now I think it's just something we have to face, that we're gonna have to get a ladder truck, you know what I mean? Because I don't wanna be that one that risks the 10 minutes that I wait for Georgetown or West Newbury or somebody to come with a ladder truck. it's just part of, I think it's just kinda, it's price of doing business.
And when he was asked, you know, because he wanted like all 5 trucks, we're like, well, which one's the most important? And he was very clear that the ladder truck was
Right.
critical, and clearly would have given up everything else to get the ladder truck, and.
Right, and when you, so basically you triage all the trucks and you say, okay, what's the one that's in
Right.
the most, it was the ladder truck, so, and it was something that, we knew was coming down the road. It wasn't like it wasn't a surprise,
Right.
we knew it was coming, and it's just, you know, you look at that price tag, and you go, oh my gosh. you
Now,
know, but-
how is that decided on? In other words, is that a
The
debt
capital
exclusion?
improvement thing?
Yeah,
And
does that go through as a debt exclusion or not?
No, well, that's, right now, we have capital improvement outlay this year, 96,659, cause we don't have to make a payment, she said, on that, or the console, cause they're
console.
gonna finance it. My question that I asked her
She
was.
was asking, she didn't say have the debt schedules, but she was asking how much it was gonna cost. and-
Yeah, what's it gonna cost, alright, so we don't have to make a payment today, but what's it gonna cost in 17 was my question, and she said she'd get back to us on that.
Right, she didn't know the rates or,
She didn't know the annual payment or anything, cause that, we need to look into factoring that in this year somehow. Even if it's not gonna hit in 16,
Well, when are
We're
we
gonna have-
when are we gonna factor in the farm we bought? AKA Center Street.
that's a
Multiple
debt
properties.
exclusion, that's outside of this budget.
Yeah, I know that, but when's it gonna hit the taxpayer?
Should
this
be in-
year,
Should be in the tax bill
16.
on April 1st,
So do we borrow money for that?
on the Center Street property,
Yeah,
or they
We
borrowed?
borrowed money.
So what are we doing now? How are we funding it now?
I don't think they've made a payment on it yet. Have they? On the-
It's just to be fair, to make decisions on some things, you have to look out what you're saying, that, what's our future cost, okay,
Cause-
now,
Yeah, my
you
thought is
know-
if we have to pay, you know, even if you straight line them, I don't know if they're 10-year or 20-year bonds. If they're 10-year bonds, even with at a 0% interest, we have another $91,000 of expense coming to us for the next 10 years. If we already have a $90,000 deficit,
Well, let's just.
Even if we
let's just
flatline
throw-
everything.
Throw out a number, try 2%
2%,
on a 10-year bond of 750,000.
plus the 160, cause they're gonna wrap in the console. So, even if.
So it's not 750.
No, it would be another $18,000 a year for interest, so basically $100,000 a year in debt. On those 2 pieces of equipment on a 10-year bond.
and then you also have whatever,
Plus
I don't
whatever
know how that's,
other
Whatever comes up.
costs, whatever other
right,
stuff comes up that we need to look at. If we have $100,000 plus
What I'm
basically
looking-
another
what I'm-
$700.
I'm not questioning the ladder need. What
No.
I'm looking at, like I think you are, is when we go to the annual meeting, the taxpayer's gonna say, my tax bill's going up this many dollars.
Yep,
well, this is
And
why,
you guys you approved the land purchase, so you knew that was coming. And we need the fire truck, and, you know,
the high school's gonna be
this is,
around the corner.
and that's,
Need the
and there's
console.
I will
nothing,
be dead and buried before that happens.
there's nothing, there's no high school that's anything less than $80 million, and divide it in half, you get 50 from the state, $40 million divided between the 3 communities. So
You're
this is
looking
what,
at 14.
this is the stuff, this is why I say,
We can't.
sometimes the volunteer committees in these different groups, some of these things they get into, you gotta look at the long haul, not the short haul. You gotta, if we want to exist in Groveland and survive all the way out, all these property buys and all this other stuff, and some of the negotiations and some of the prices we pay for some of the stuff, it's gonna hurt us down the road, because the more loans you take out, the worse rates you get.
Yeah, which means.
I don't know what my bond rating is, and then they start looking at the numbers and your debt ratios, just like when you get your FICO score and you find out, oh geez, my FICO score isn't so good because I have too many credit cards and all the other stuff. And that's what's gonna happen with this, this is why they gotta look at what You know, that's the idea of the capital improvement committee stuff, is that you can forecast a little bit and say, hey, listen, what's the big stuff that's coming down the road? We see it coming, you
Are
know?
you still on that?
But the high school stuff and stuff like that, I'm telling you, that's right around the corner,
Mhm.
right around the corner. And I beg them, if they put those fields in, don't ever build a high school on top of those fields we just spent all that money on. Because I've seen it happen in other places. So I just hope, I know that's something that's in the future, you know? I don't know that's tough, that's part of the problem with this stuff. But there's some things we have to do normal business, so we're gonna have a fire department, we're not gonna have a fire department, you need a ladder truck. The communications, that's our 911 center, we can't have the communication center going down,
Yeah.
we gotta spend the money on it.
Right.
You don't need a truck if you don't have the communication center.
You won't need the truck.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the hydrants don't work, because you won't need to use them.
But, you know, getting to your point, Bill, about looking into the future, this is how we got into this predicament now. This is why the MBTA is in a predicament, because they don't look down the road and say, you know, we're running on a 1991 ladder truck. How long can we
Can we do that?
realistically patch this thing together with bobby pins and duct tape? And people wanna bury their head in the sand and they don't wanna buy it, they'll push it out, push it out, push it out, push it out. And eventually the chicks come home to roost, and this is what happens. That fire truck is literally one pothole away from snapping, you know, the mainframe in the middle and having to be dragged away for scrap.
And sometimes it takes time to get those trucks too, sometimes you have to build them, so you gotta, that's why you have to forecast that stuff. It takes a little bit of
Sure.
time to get what
To
you're
find a
looking
used
for.
one or a demo that actually fits in the garage, that fits your needs. You know, those, they don't come down the road every 5 minutes,
Right,
Yeah,
you know?
it's not like you're looking for a used Honda or something.
No, these are things
That's
that,
it.
you know, when they're put on the plan, I think they ought to be taken seriously and steps should be taken at that point to start planning for those expenditures at that point in time and not just continually pushing them off, raising the cost. It's not only the cost of the equipment, it's the cost of the repairs to keep the aging fleet just running.
Yeah. Did they fire the tree warden, that $300 stipend?
You put it into the expense line item last year.
Oh,
It's still there.
It's still there this year.
It's just broken out. Last year was 10-3 in one line item, now it's 10-3.
okay, but that's the 15 approved budget. Why did that jump so much? What was the big need this year?
What page is
I
that?
don't know.
Oh, here I
I
am.
can't even find it.
Public works
It's right
is
under
the first line
the
item.
education.
Oh, you mean from the spent to the actual?
Well, if you look at 14, they spent 6,800 or something like that, whatever it was, where is it?
6890.
Okay, and,
We gave them 10 grand last year.
and this year we give them 10 grand. What have they expensed already this year? That's what I wanna know. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the other things that I'm not real happy about, what I'm hearing. Like, well, I don't have those figures. Well, yeah, you do. You just have to look them up. We have the figures. She has last year's budget, she has the years before and all the years before that.
Yeah,
I
we
mean, I
need-
just
we need
feel,
actuals.
and the whole thing about the snow and ice removal. I've been on this board 13 years, and we've always been the ones
Always
to
signed
approve
it.
it, and then it goes to the selectmen,
yeah.
for their basically cursory thank you, you know? I don't know, I mean, what do we do? We really don't do much of anything. I'm starting to get to a point where I'm gonna pull a Tom Minicello,
Well, there were some things
because I'm just tired. I'm
in
tired of it.
conversations with Denise in the past that, we'll say for lack of a better terms, weren't done according to the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts appropriately. And maybe this is just one of these things that she's seen has been done this way, but it hasn't been correct. This is the way it needs to be done, according to, you know, the way the statute is read, so they bypass us. There's a few things like that I've heard that we weren't necessarily going by the book. So she's trying to straighten the book.
Yeah, and she's the one telling us we haven't gone by the book in the past. Do we really know?
So, what do you wanna do? You
No,
wanna
I
start?
haven't read the book.
Do you know?
Yeah, well, that's,
I don't know, which groups wanna come and see us? Do we invite them all and then,
well, what we
Well,
did
it's been a
before
while,
is
yeah.
anytime anybody had anything extreme, that's what we wanted to meet with. And if, you know, so they could argue their case.
I haven't had a chance, I just copied this morning, so I hadn't had a chance to.
I just took a quick peek myself. We could just pick,
You just wanna go down the list from top to bottom and.
The one that I noticed was second on the list was the, Board of Selectmen, that's why I said, did Nancy retire, or is Nancy gone? I mean,
yeah,
gladly it wasn't a Dick Sharker that I hadn't heard about.
I knew that, I knew Nancy was talking about retiring. It was all like,
When
I
did
knew at this
Denise,
point.
is that Nancy's?
Yes.
When did she send attachments? Cause I don't get anything from her ever.
Really?
Really?
I really don't. I
Last
get
week I
emails
got,
from
I
Bill and
think it was
that's
last year, I got emails.
You didn't
Yeah,
get this
last
stuff in there?
I didn't. get
Wasn't it?
Last
She
week.
might have
Said
said,
last year.
you know, I might have
Oh,
looked at
last
it
week,
and
yeah.
got it wrong.
Feels like
I'm not
last
gonna
year.
see it on here.
I can,
Okay.
let me see. I've got a little folder here. She had like an old list, she said.
She went with an old list and asked if there were any wrong, and I might have had one
She
wrong.
has, is that
She
you?
got Groveland GOP at Comcast.net.
Yep.
Isn't that you?
That's me.
How come you?
Is it
That's
done
both
right?
mine.
Is it caps or something off or?
I don't have anything from
Are they going in your, spam or bulk folder?
What I find interesting is all these different people all have 2% increases on their proposals.
They always do.
There we do.
I guess so.
And others don't. Others have more.
More. What is this new municipal building generation? Anyone have any idea?
New
We
one.
didn't, they didn't have a
What do you
janitor
want?
here. I'm wondering if they're planning on putting one in there.
Under,
Oh, municipal buildings custodian, facility part-time.
I
Yeah.
saw that. I'm glad you mentioned that. 'cause
That's
it's-
new.
that's a huge, I just have to look at it and say, alright, we've got a deficit. We're borrowing more money. We need to figure out where our deficit is coming from.
Who
Yes.
Yeah,
did
we
it
never
now?
had one of these, and what it is, I don't know, I remember talking to Greg, talking about him changing toilet paper and, putting, light bulbs in,
Right.
sometimes. I don't know how we have done business here before.
But some of that, I work in a small office, small business, there's two of us, I change
You're just
toilet
trying to do
paper
stuff, right?
and
Yeah,
clean toilets and vacuum, that's
Well, part of
kinda,
Part of the job was you're gonna wear a lot of hats.
yeah, so,
Now that's a new hat.
that's a new hat.
right.
Was this something that, oh no, I was gonna say maybe it was under somebody else's job that they're breaking up separately, but
No,
I think it was part of what Craig just used to
No, that
do.
was
I think
never,
that was Greg's
there was no,
auxiliaries.
there wasn't a facilities part-time custodian in there. There was not.
Okay.
I believe that's new stuff.
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that,
yeah,
that's not the case.
I've
No,
never
I
seen
think Greg used to run around and change light
He
bulbs.
did stuff like
Take
that,
it and look after the buildings in the town and things like that.
yeah.
so,
And I thought that was understood, that was, she
part
was
of
gonna
it.
kinda pick that up.
Yeah, I think there was some other technology expenses that I saw that were. I started marking two different sheets here. I don't know, off the top, the ones that I saw that had increases, that I'd be kinda curious to talk to them more about police, fire,
Mhm.
that municipal buildings, education, highway, cemetery, BOS. And I think everything else,
Veterans,
I think everything else, pretty much everyone else put in for just 2% payroll increases. Or if they didn't, that can be,
What'd you say, police, fire, who else?
highway, cemetery.
yeah.
And did you mention veterans?
I know the education.
Oh, education.
Pentucket.
I'm looking at veterans as
And that-
well.
in the buildings, what,
Wonder who can talk about veterans benefits,
where was that?
No, that's out of our control.
skyrocketed.
Yeah, because we had people move in.
It's one for one. It's counted per veteran, so
Yep.
there's.
A
there's
law
no
says
secret.
that, yes, you have to
We
pay.
have to fund so much.
Cause his numbers just doubled, just.
Yeah.
The building inspector is asking for $6,000 more.
Yeah, I was looking at
So,
Where is that under?
Section 24.
Oh, okay, I was looking at the individual ones, you were looking at the,
The Board of Assessors, she wanted, the assessors manager, she wanted to raise higher than the others.
Yeah, hers was
She
3.2%.
does every
So
year.
she says increased responsibility is what it said on it.
Yeah, I think we should personally recommend either a 1.5% or 2% raise to all town employees. I come up with 1.5 because I did look into like the consumer index inflation funding. It seems like inflation was only up about 1.33% from 13 to 14. I know many of the people that live here are on fixed incomes. And taxes are going like sky high. So I think we need to, I know that even just personally, like my husband's job, they capped all raises this year. They haven't done that for several years. And this year they went back to capping raises in private industry, so. Unless there's some significant change of duties, then I think they should all be capped at 1.5 to 2%.
The
What that
building
number is.
inspector's looking for a 12% increase in salary.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, anybody that's not,
Something happened with the building inspector during slower times, I think, if I remember right, they cut
did
the
they cut his
inspector's
hours?
hours
Yeah.
because there wasn't any building going on.
yes, but they
Is
also,
there now?
That's what well, what's his
Bought up
What's
all
his
the land.
income coming into the department for building permits?
Not much. There's, let's see,
Yours is-
there's two
yours-
houses on Center, there's a couple houses on Center Street being built, I know that much, because I went by and ran by them.
a couple of them over on Seven Star.
A couple on Seven Star.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think-
Yeah, there's the two at the bottom of Seven
And
Star.
I know there's 8 houses
Fairways.
getting built next to my house.
Fairways is, the Fairways, that one in
But what happened with the building inspector was this. At one point, it was per
Yeah.
housing, or per addition and per whatever, whatever you had to inspect, there was a fee. And he was making big money. So the town, in their brilliance, decided that maybe we should put him back, or just put him on salary. And so it's a lot of building, he won't get as much per inspection, out of it, but he'll it'll even out, give him an equal salary. But then all of a sudden, development and building just fell out of the sky.
Right.
So he continued to get that salary and really had
What's
nothing to
going
do.
on?
So I mean, I understand the reasoning for it, and I don't know. I bought my house in '98 and he never inspected it, well, anyway.
So building inspector would you put on the list?
Yeah, just to see what his,
No,
is he looking for?
his daughter was working for him for a while, and he was taking that money out of his own salary and paying her privately. She was like his clerk. Well, I don't think she's still with him, but I don't know, maybe she is, I don't know. Maybe he's looking to cover that expense or something. We can find out though.
Well, that's a good start of a list anyways, because we're not gonna see all them at once.
Yeah, and then,
But,
and then a CPC fund, if we do that on that March 9th.
and everything he appears to have on there is stuff that they already have the funding for.
Yeah, there was
It's a
I
shame
tried-
they didn't put more money down on the land.
there was a big pot of money in there. They
So
are
what-
talking about addressing,
What is this $1 million request? What is it for?
it is several requests, there's a request.
She's the Tom Minicello replacement on the
Yes, I gathered that, just from our conversation.
So there's a request in from DDL, for a lot of improvements down at Washington Park, unimproved, play structure.
Basically
fields
renovation and revitalization.
of Washington Park that's much needed. There was, I'm trying to think, there was that was one of the big ones. There's some studies being done, work being done about, low income housing, money being spent on that. some stuff on the cemetery, the archway, the vault tomb, the cemetery stuff. There's some appropriations towards library for some archival materials that we have that are just being thrown in final storage, they're not being taken care of. There was something about the gas station at the bridge.
Yeah, what about it?
Appropriating some money to do some studies on that, so they're thinking of potentially buying that,
Putting the park in?
and putting a park in or something.
They already removed the gas tanks, so at least that was done.
Yeah, so some money on doing some 21E studies and stuff for that, if we were to contract to purchase that, the money would be allocated for that.
And then the post office could rent the space from the electric light company.
Yeah, can. And there's a couple other ones, but I forget what they were off the top of my head. A couple of stuff to BC Park and stuff like that.
So it's a ballpark idea.
Yeah, so there was some money, spent, there was a sizable amount in that fund.
Is there any plans to do anything with all the land we own on Center Street now?
I believe outside of
Right.
CPC, there's a committee formed by the BOS.
Yeah, there's a committee
Committee
that's looking
formed for that
people.
Greenway bill.
To decide what to do.
Oh,
with
and
it.
there was rail trail money, that was the other one.
Oh, yes.
The second half of that rail
When
trail.
we have rail trails.
The land, they're putting a committee together on what to do with the land. I got an email on that. But originally, the first email I got on it, I asked if that had been approved by the Board of Selectmen, and it had. Now, apparently it has been approved by the Board of Selectmen. But there's some problems. One of the pieces of land, I believe they gave them 5 years to take the soil from it.
And that's one of the millions.
One of whoever was the original
Angelini's.
owner had a whole bunch of,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was loam or what type of soil it was, but the gravel, whatever it was, is he had that all piled up on the property, he was given a time period to take that off and sell that,
Okay.
basically, so I don't know why you're gonna do any planning of anything on that. Number two, my understanding was that land was basically strip mined down to the bedrock.
Mhm.
It's down to the bedrock.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to build that up if you're planning on doing it. I thought the whole purpose of us buying the land was to protect the aquifer,
Mm-hmm.
correct? But if you're gonna put athletic fields that you're gonna fertilize next to an aquifer, I don't think that's such an advisable thing.
If you put in natural grass turf.
But the whole aquifer, that ecosystem survives because of the topsoil and the plant growth on top of it.
Right.
And
But
that's
there is
been
no
stripped.
topsoil in that.
That's right.
Well, the thing is, the aquifer is underneath, from my understanding, is underneath the whole town.
80% of the town.
Yes,
Yeah,
something
but that
extreme,
particular
and
one
that
straddles the
particular,
two properties.
in that particular point, there's like less topsoil or something. I could be
Yeah,
really
the
wrong
topsoil
on
was
this.
stripped off.
It's higher to the ground level than
So
say
needless
over
to say,
here.
there's not a, they had to wait 5 years for him to take
Right.
the dirt, and it's gonna be very expensive to do anything to those
Mhm.
areas, because it's basically been ripped down to the bedrock.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem.
Mhm.
Now, they're gonna have a committee put together, and they're gonna look for some representative from the different groups to be involved. And I'm glad you brought it up, because I did get an email on it. I don't know, there was no deadline as to when they were gonna put that committee together, but there's gonna be a committee they're gonna be putting together. But some of those things have some, we can't do anything. I always said we didn't need to buy the property because the aquifer was gonna be protected anyways. Well, they've already put in protections on the aquifer, so some things can't be done around it. But that could have been done with the private landowner also.
Correct. I agree with you on all those points.
So that's the aquifer, and that's what's going on. They are putting something together to decide what to do with it. but I don't think it's gonna be a cheap venture.
But at least we have a 5-year grace period. Yes, a reprieve from additional costs being spent on that property.
On some of it, I don't know if that's what their game plan is, you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know what cause BOS technically controls that property, so I don't know what their thoughts are on all of that. And if they're putting together this committee to give them some guidance, maybe.
Right, I think that's what they're just trying to decide which direction they're gonna go with it. I've never really walked the property around like that, I don't know if there's hazardous areas and stuff like that, but we're responsible for them because the town of Groveland owns it right now.
Then that makes the seats on the open seats and the new seats on the board critical.
That's just some of the things that are going on. I'll have to, you know, if anybody's interested in getting involved with that on the board, just speak right up about it.
I've already been approached,
Yeah,
so,
so,
You have a different perspective, sir.
I'm always out for the world's most important resource,
Youth.
the children,
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow's generations. Whether we like it or not, they will inherit what we give them. I'd like to give them something decent.
You can pay for it. I'm all set.
I'm trying.
but, that's what's going on with that. So, is there anything else you wanna look at tonight on this? Do you wanna go through these worksheets? Is there anything, I mean, we know I'll let her know, let Denise know about these groups to try to get them forward, it'd be a good start. I don't know who she's you know, everybody's gonna have commitments, I don't know who actually out of that group's gonna be able to
Right.
get there, and I'm sure we get enough time to meet with everybody anyways.
We have the month of March, basically.
Month of March.
When is town meeting?
April
Last
27th.
Monday of April,
27th?
Yeah,
which means that we have to have those,
Meet
everything,
them up and decide
everything
what
should
we're
be
gonna do.
ready by the first week of April.
So we've got five Mondays in March. So,
So we'll
I
start
know
off
if
asking
I-
for,
yeah, I know for one that I will not be able to probably make the March 16th meeting if we have one. Just
Okay.
because it ends up being a corporate
Corporate deadline.
deadline day, so,
okay,
I know I won't be able to make that meeting, so. I know we're kind of short-staffed at the moment too on this board, it seems like.
I won't be at town meeting either.
Oh, you won't be at town meeting?
okay.
can you vote, Roxy?
You can find me, I'll vote.
This talks about the postage. Now, in some of these things too, like some of these salaries are gonna be contracts that the board of selectmen are gonna approve anyway, so it's really,
That was
Something
my
that we're
point
gonna-
earlier, that we really can't
we're not gonna be able to,
control that.
right,
What we learned last year is there's very few line items in this entire budget that we actually have much of a say in.
Mm-hmm.
see, I still to this day think the land grab was a major mistake. And you know, it's nice to have open fields and I've come from places they overbuilt. I think it was a huge mistake and I think the town's gonna pay for it. Because we got this high school coming also, and the taxes are gonna be through the roof if we're not careful.
$18 by then, it's already well over 15.
We're gonna be at, I think with that, we should be at close to,
Only thing, unless you can put the new high school on top of that land, maybe
There
we
we
can get
go.
something out of it.
We put it right on the bedrock.
Yeah, you'd never get Merrimack to agree they'd have to cross the river,
No,
or.
it's the other way around.
Yeah,
Put it in Merrimack and you'll never get West Newbury, they'll secede from the district. That was the problem with the last proposal, that was what major problem, or having their poor little 5th and 6th graders go on the bus with the big kids. And go to the middle school.
yeah, that's why I think a lot of this talk about this new school is long ways off before a lot of this stuff is settled. It's gonna be a talk for 5
with all these other things that
One
Groveland's
brick blade.
purchased and the other things the other towns have done, you know,
It's a nice to have. That's all it's gonna be for a long time, a nice to have. I don't think it's, you're looking at a decade, I think, before the shovel even hits the dirt.
I have a wager with one of my colleagues at the high school. She said, oh, we'll have a new high school in 2 years, and I went, what are you kidding? I'm gonna retire in 5, I'm planning to. I said, it won't be occupied when I retire.
I think the school's closer than you think.
Yeah,
Because
cause I,
you just got you talking about for the children, believe me, as soon as it's for the children, it'll be quicker than you think.
yeah, and I know they're looking at renovating and not just building new too, so.
But that always runs into a problem,
of all the
because the
vehicles,
problem is, I mean, I watched other communities do it,
you gotta figure out-
handicapped accessibility, you have to bring it up to code, and all that, and codes change from 1960, whatever, to now. So by the time you figure that all out, you
Costs a
wanna
lot.
take the wrecking ball and break it
Yeah,
and go and start from scratch, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's your problem, is that you still have to have a high school while you're building another school.
yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you pull all that off?
Yeah, or you renovate it slowly like other towns have done, and I lived
Yeah.
through one of those and,
In the renovation, sometimes it's not the payout, you
yeah.
know? There's been a lot of water issues at times up there where, you know, something had been flowing all weekend long, you know, and, that type of thing. You end up with mold,
Mhm.
whatever else, you know, so a lot of different issues like that.
Yeah, asbestos removal, all of a sudden they changed all the regulations. So you had to bring in the hazmat team and they had to come in with total contained outfits on. You know, prior to that, you know, you could put new tile on the floor without having to do that. You know?
It's changed. This is what I was talking about here, the assessor's manager, that she had gone to 3.18%, because apparently, there's been a change in the duties and responsibilities for that position.
So,
I mean, could I raise my list? I
Yeah,
think
but-
last year we ended up just kicking her to BOS and stuff.
Yeah, they decided.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And they decided, so,
I don't think there's been a year I've been on the committee, so I was not very present last year, I do admit that. But prior to that, Debbie didn't come looking for justification why she needed more money. And most years it was her comparison she did with all the area people that do basically her same job. And,
That's what she did last
I
year.
mean, and I always wondered how she could change her hours in the summer and not work very much. I don't know, you know, that always, obviously you don't need to,
well, she's not a 40-hour employee either,
No, she's
no.
not.
if I remember right.
She's
So that was another,
32.
32, 30 or 32, yeah.
so I mean, that's just another one of the things, I mean. But I guess we could just, you know, go over this stuff, we could meet with those groups next week.
Some of them.
Is there anything else you have any questions about or anything? We don't have Denise to ask any more questions too.
There was another one that was like building insurance, that went up from 98 to 128 grand, that I didn't ask her about.
When she was talking about expenses for things, which one were you talking about?
There was an insurance, property and casualty insurance, it's line item
First line.
18,
Yeah,
went from 98 grand,
to 128.
128, that's 30 grand, and about 30% pretty much increase. So I guess why the increase on that, cause that's 30% of me. What is that, insuring, I guess,
The new land.
maybe,
Yeah, it has to be.
yeah, is that part of it? I mean, I know
Property.
insurance rates went up, I know like my own house insurance went up the last few years, so.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, we own more property,
Yeah, so if we own more property, it's not,
liability.
you know,
Yeah, I guess that's a
Someone
possibility.
might be out there walking their dog and fall down and hit their head on the stone.
Unless there's a
Right.
change in the philosophy or something too, you know,
Maybe
when she
that's all.
seen something, she thought we should have more insurance on it.
Yeah, I don't know, that was a line item I saw that was big.
Maybe we could email, like, an email list going of what we need from her for next week, and
Okay.
email it to her ahead of time, cause she seems pretty good about
Yeah.
getting us stuff, and getting us stuff early.
Sure,
I know you're not getting, but like, we had it
Well,
like,
I can forward it to you.
well, we had like Friday or
we had the
something.
right email address though, right?
Yeah, I don't,
Okay,
We just blocked it.
Yeah, she sees it.
it probably got some virus protection, it isn't letting.
They were
people in
titled,
town.
they were titled budget,
And they were big.
and I got 2 of them, I think, from her.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, there were 2 emails attached, I mean, 2 files attached to the same email. And it was part 1 and part 2.
But that was a PDF.
Yeah, well, those are PDFs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the other two are Excel files.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that Excel file, the first one, I opened it and I went, so what? You know, it was generalized summation of,
You know, it's this
you know,
one.
yeah, it was basically that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, I don't know. But the expense one, and all the attached heading letters that the department sent out were, you know, I think it was 60-something pages.
Mhm.
In fact, it's right here, I brought it with me, so.
Yeah, this one.
yeah, I
Maybe we
don't
should
know, I
do
got
it
two,
in
two copies
a-
now, so.
Yeah, it's like 60-something copies, so.
But if we had a list of what we're looking for in terms of some of these line items.
Yeah, like questions we have, like the insurance,
Right,
or like the building maintenance, I don't know if that falls under her, that municipal custodian or whatever.
but if we could
I
get
would
that
think
ahead
under
of time,
total
know
general
what-
government, everything's falling on her, right?
Yeah,
But if she knew what we were looking for, then she could come in with concrete.
yeah, and like the bond amount type things, yeah.
Cause I think probably some of the stuff you have to go through and look up
Right,
the
Right.
answer, and you don't wanna be spending time with us sitting here while she's digging through files.
So the annual meeting will have nothing to say about the fire truck purchase, is that right?
they could still block the budget,
Well, where's it in the budget? Where's it gonna go in the budget?
capital outlay,
Capital outlay?
I
Is
think
it
so.
listed on the sheet that you have in your handbook? Is that included in this? That was.
Capital outlay is a
Should be a
separate,
part of it.
It's on the
right,
warrant.
but there's a separate warrant article
It
for
is.
capital outlay. And we'd have to probably request to get a bond for $910,000 for the use of a fire truck, to purchase a fire truck and that. piece of
So what I'm
equipment.
saying is, so generally when we do that kind of outlay, there is, the town approves it through a warrant article?
Yeah, well, we'd have to, I think we'd have to approve the bond to go out and purchase.
And the question's gonna be, what's that gonna cost us? That's why I asked that question. What is it gonna cost us? Oh, nothing this year? Well,
That doesn't mean it's free.
no,
Right.
it's just kinda like, we haven't paid anything for the property we bought.
no, it's
Right.
just projecting it later, and you're gonna end up, once you start making the payments, then you're gonna see,
Right.
that's when you're gonna start.
Could've been done differently. Could've been put on this year, but it wasn't.
The property? Yeah, it was because the PNS wasn't signed before we voted as a town to outlay the bond, which is what I believe you brought up at town meeting that 2 years ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
The
How can we buy something
when we
without
first-
PNS? Remember?
when we sat at town meeting and I asked them to table,
And that was your
And-
reason.
it was a little hue and cry over that. When we asked to table that, the thing was that there was no PNS sign, and we didn't have any particulars.
Right.
There were no particulars as to what was going on.
Then
And
we
I
find
said
out the
we couldn't get
comparison
it.
of the property.
I couldn't get a bank loan for my house if I didn't have a PNS sign.
Right.
I said, so how are we agreeing to something we don't have a PNS sign? So that whole thing went on and on and on, and then we gave them an extra chance to get that PNS signed.
You know,
Well, it really didn't get signed
No.
until later, but they came to an agreement, and then it got signed later. I didn't really, that's the part I was a little confused about. Because we had said, we'll give you till June, the way I
End of
understood
fiscal
it.
year, yeah.
And I might not have understood it right, but I my understanding was, we'll give you till June to get that PNS signed. Then something happened with it, and I don't know if it
Well,
necessarily
it
got
was partly to
signed,
do
it's
with-
just they agreed to terms, and then it got straightened out, is what it got,
Well,
what
they-
happened.
Well, we had asked them to clear all title
To clear the
issues,
title.
clear title issues, and get the PNS signed by June 30th. I believe they had, it sounded like they had the PNS signed, but I don't think the title issues had been cleared. I think
The
they
title
had,
issues weren't clear, they finally got clear title, because it was an issue where,
no, it was a
you know, the
preliminary.
title wasn't clear, or what, you know, there was a lot of different little things.
Like maybe some of the property wasn't really owned by the people that were selling it to the town?
Yeah,
So there was a chain of title issue, I believe.
Yes.
yeah, there was a couple of glitches
Yeah.
that were correct.
Because then when you find out the property they used as a comparison to assess it was waterfront property in Marblehead,
Mm,
seem comparable?
mm.
You need to appraise it?
Yeah.
So anyway, do we have any other questions that we should be going over with with any of this stuff? You think we'll just try to get those groups before us?
Yeah.
You wanna close the meeting? All in favor of closing the meeting, say aye. Aye,
You can close the meeting without a vote, if you know that,
thank you.
parliamentary.